So it was a national shutdown today, and certainly the country was not brought to a standstill as many people had anticipated, but a point was certainly made across the country. Members of the two biggest union federations took to the streets over the rising cost of living in the country. Union members marching to various government buildings to deliver memorandums of their demands. Let's hear from two of our reporters covering the marches in different centres. Heidi Giokos in Pretoria, Lethiwe Mdluli in Durban. Hello to both of you. Heidi, let's start with you in Pretoria. Before the march, we understood it was going to be the area where the most marches were expected. There were concerns that there might be violence, that it might be very disruptive. Talk to us, though, Heidi, about the turnout and whether it was a completely peaceful march.
Yes, it was very peaceful, Sally, and we know that hundreds affiliated to COSATU Federation as well as SAFTU Federation gathered at their final point, which was the union buildings, to hand over a memorandum of demands. Top of the list was, of course, the big issue around job creation and our very high unemployment rate, especially among the youth. Another big issue is the cost of living, which of course includes the very high fuel price that South Africans are being subjected to. They want this to be addressed by government and perhaps some government intervention in terms of what can be done to ease the pressure on the pockets of many South Africans, as almost absolutely everything is going up. There were a number of other issues that they want to be addressed, but I think the two main ones is the cost of living as well as unemployment. But there weren't many disruptions. Well, there were actually no disruptions with regards to this protest here in Pretoria. We know that they try to keep it as peaceful as possible and just make sure that they hand over that memorandum. There seemed to be some kind of disruption when the Minister in the Presidency, Mondli Gungubele, asked the media to go inside the area of the union buildings, the garden area, to have a press briefing to answer any questions from the media with regards to the memorandum that was handed over. You had about 2 or 3 union members trying to stop the minister from speaking and calling him a liar and saying that he has not been honest with the working class. However, that was quickly diffused, and we just moved to a different point for that media briefing to continue. But it just seems as though the unions want the memorandum to be answered. They want the demands to be met, and they want government this time around to listen, because we've seen, protest after protest, march after march, and many times this just gets put onto the desk, possibly of the president or any government official, and this isn't really addressed. Perhaps let's listen to what SAFTU's Mdluli had to say with regards to certain demands that they want met.
They told us that in the last quarter we have seen a decrease of a 1% in the rate of unemployment in our country. So they say, as we speak, a catastrophic 45% of the South African population is unemployed. But let's break that a little bit more, because we have a history of colonialism. We have the history of apartheid in our country. For black people, that unemployment is already at 50%. For black women, that unemployment is already at 53%. For the young people between the ages of 15 and 24 years, that unemployment is at 75%.
Yeah, so Heidi, really there, Zwelinzima Vavi is highlighting just how deep the unemployment crisis hits in certain groups in our country. But what did he actually demand of government? I mean, he's highlighting the reality of unemployment. But at times we also heard him say down with capitalism. We see the poster behind him in that video talking about public servants' wages. Talk to us about some of the very specific demands they had today and the response from the minister in the presidency.
Well, Sally, I think the biggest one, and as I mentioned earlier, it's about job creation and how government is going to find a solution to employ more young people to contribute to our economy and not just have older people perhaps in government positions. That poster that you saw, also a massive issue that they want addressed, is the public wage bill increase. They want their salaries to be increased, and without the minister being able to give too much information, because that's currently being discussed and wage negotiations underway. Workers are saying that they want a salary increase. Public servants want a salary increase. They claim they haven't had one for years, and they have been subjected to austerity measures, and they want government to consider an increase that will be satisfactory to them because of the cost of living. They also want intervention from government with regards to the fuel price, because they feel as though government has the power to lower the fuel price, as the minister in the presidency alluded to the fact that global markets and factors only contribute about 40% to the total amount of how much we pay for petrol, and there are other factors of that 60% that perhaps government could intervene on. So load shedding also came up. Unions want load shedding to be addressed. They don't want Eskom to be privatized. So there's a massive list that has been handed over to the president and the minister and the presidency that they want addressed, because they just feel as though government is in power, government is in control, and the working class continue to suffer. What did the minister and the presidency respond? The minister and the presidency basically responding to the fact that they are doing all they can. They are listening to the demands of the working class and of COSATU and SAFTU, but they can only do so much, and they will respond. They are worried about the concerns listed and the demands that have been mentioned and put on the table, and they will get back to COSATU and SAFTU as soon as they're able to find a solution. Whether or not there will be a solution, Sally, it's basically a wait-and-see game, because we've seen these marches before, and sometimes we just don't see actual action plans. But let's listen to the Minister and the Presidency, Mdluli Gungubele.
I want to also make this guarantee, comrades. There is no plan in this government to sell Eskom. It does not exist. You will not find it in any document that was selling ownership of Eskom. Two, comrades. One of the things we have committed under Matamela is that corruption must be dealt with, irrespective of who has done it. That's why the Zondo Commission is online unedited. That's why the SIU report is online unedited. It's because we know unless certain things are turned around, that poverty, that inequality is not going to be turned around. That's why we are, as we speak, driving the National Water Resource Agency. That's why, as we speak, SA Connect is penetrating in the country. That's why, as we speak, Spectrum has been released. I can go on and on. It is because there is that commitment. 249 billion this year is committed to infrastructure, 60 going to province and 60 to local government.
All right, so that's the picture from Pretoria. Most people were seen in Pretoria today. Thanks for that, Heidi. Lethiwe Mdluli, I want to bring you in. You were in the Durban area. Talk to me about how much of a crowd there was on the streets today, whether there were any problems or any disruptions.
Well, Sally, in Durban, there weren't any problems, and a number of people actually came out to join in this march. We saw COSATU and its affiliates painting the town red, basically, and bringing Durban, especially the CBD, to a standstill. We saw them marching from King Dini Zulu Park all the way to the Durban City Hall. I think about 900 people, even 1,000 people actually came out and joined in this march. I had a chance to speak to a lot of marchers who came through and just speak to them about why they joined in, and they were saying that they are basically calling for the government to intervene. They are saying that they cannot afford the high food prices and also the high fuel prices as well, and they are complaining about the high unemployment rate. I had a chance to speak to a few young people who were part of the march, and they were saying that once they finish school, once they graduate from university, it's very hard for them to find jobs, and these are some of the things that COSATU was basically calling against. These are some of the problems that they have on their memorandum. When they were reading out the memorandum, they did also mention that they are calling for the government to intervene when it comes to the fuel levy and also load shedding. So it's basically those kind of problems that they are fighting against, and they're calling for the government basically to intervene. Some of the people that I spoke to also mentioned that their salaries have remained the same for years now. I spoke to Nursing Union Denosa. I also spoke to SATU as well, Teachers Union. Here in KZN, we've been covering stories about teachers demanding for those vacant posts to be filled because they are saying that they're working overtime, but they haven't been paid the right salaries. The nurses are also saying the same thing. The healthcare sector is saying they haven't received any salary hikes since it's been years now. Once I actually spoke to the spokesperson for Denosa here in KZN, and they were saying that they're currently in talks with government in terms of basically salary increases. And they are saying since the economy is doing so badly and everything is very expensive in South Africa, workers are unable to afford anything currently. While speaking to some of the workers that actually made it through to the march today, this is what they had to share.
Well, I just need to make my presence heard by being here physically to express my dissatisfaction at the cost of living in South Africa, particularly the electricity, the rates, the price of food that has escalated in the last 2 years to such a dramatic rate. And just by being here, I want to show our government that we are not satisfied with the way they operate the country. I also want to highlight the fact that most of the ex-parliamentaries that have been exposed for the money corruption and the laundering that they've done, we're still waiting to see 1 cent returned to the coffers of the public. And basically that's the reason why I'm here today.
Yeah, so what we're seeing across the board is that people are saying government must intervene more over these prices and help us out. COSATU in KwaZulu-Natal has also spoken. What did they have to say, Lethiwe?
Well, Sally, COSATU here in the province are saying that they're giving government 14 days to respond to the demands that were written in that memorandum, because they did submit that memorandum to the Transport MEC here in the province, and they are saying that they're going to be giving them 14 days to respond. Of course, one of the major issues that they were complaining about is the unemployment in the country and also the high food prices. They're also complaining about poor governance, saying that government has failed the workers in this country and also the poor in this country. They are calling for the government to do something. Basically, the message today was that they need to be involved in any discussions that government is going to be having within this 14 days that they're giving them. And we did see the Transport MEC here in the province signing that memorandum and making promises that there will be discussions about the shutdown today. While speaking to the Secretary for COSATU here in KZN, Edwin Mkiza, this is what he had to say.
Since the onset of this current capitalist crisis, the ruling elites have implemented reckless budget cuts and imposed extreme sacrifices on the workers. There has been a blatant attempt to erode workers' hard-won rights and reverse the gains of democracy. The lives of the working class and the poor have become one long emergency, and the COVID-19 pandemic has only made things worse. The growing frustrations in the country is mainly being fueled by policies that favor the elites and that are colored by an animus towards the poor. To address these socio-economic challenges facing South Africa and the plight of the working class and the poor, decision makers will have to first acknowledge that poverty is not accidentally, but it flows from the logic of the capitalist system.
So certainly the picture on the national shutdown in Pretoria and Durban, a peaceful march, no incidents, but a strong message all round for government to do more to help out regarding the crippling cost of living. Lethiwe Mdluli in Durban, Heidi Giokos in Pretoria, thanks very much to both of you.